Still feels a little dark. Um, Welcome, everyone, to Fleet Office Hours. Thanks for tuning in, and I'm running this myself, so thanks for bearing with me because this may be a little bit rough. So the purpose of this office hours is to be answering technical questions about Fleet, deployment, configuration, the code base, anything you're curious about. I may not have all the answers, but I can try to reason through things and try to figure out where to find the answers. Let's see. So if things are kind of quiet in chat, then I'll work on some bugs or features. And occasionally other people drop in. So I did not have a topic for this week. Normally I send out a LinkedIn post like on Monday with a topic, because on Monday Monday morning at least, I was in Brussels, Belgium, because I was attending and speaking at the FOSDEM conference, and I wanted to talk a couple of minutes about it. Let me switch to my screen. Let's see. Okay, so this is the page. So FOSDEM is an open source conference which is free to attend. So it's really great for anyone in Brussels or nearby who can get there cheap, because you go in there and there's over 1,000 lectures you can attend on all kinds of topics: AI, audio, video, graphics, different languages, browsers, BSD, etc., policies, open source community. So yes, there was a crazy amount of people there. It is held in a university, the Brussels Universitat Libre, Free University of Brussels. The vibe is, I would say, a little rough, in the sense that, the university, it's a university, so, made for students. Some things are out of order, like in one of the bathrooms, or several bathrooms, like the water didn't work. Some of the desks are beat up. Also, it's in university settings, so the rooms are made for, people to come in there for the class. So sometimes it's hard for large groups of people to get in and out of those rooms. So there was like 1,000 lectures that were spread out across the university, but sometimes it was hard to. It took you like 30 minutes between talks to get from one talk to another, and the talks were generally 30 minutes. Now all the talks are public online. The ones for this year are still coming out, so you can go to the FOSDEM site, click on the lectures, and then you'll see these video links down here. So if I search for my name, which I've hidden, I did a talk in the GoDev room about our modularization effort, which I covered in this live stream, I think, last time. And then I also gave a talk on endpoint telemetry, which I also covered last time, but I wanted to kind of talk about it a little bit more today. So overall, it was an interesting experience. One of the nights, I think Saturday night, I was taking the tram. I was using public transportation there, so I was just taking the tram back to the hotel, and on the tram, I started talking with a few people and ended up going to dinner with them. So definitely a lot of people, random encounters. I had definitely a good experience. I'm not sure if US has something with that vibe. Maybe All Things Open. I am going to try to apply to speak at All Things Open in Raleigh this year. And check it out. Certainly, I did attend the Linux conference, Open Source Summit, last year, and Open Source Summit is more like a kind of like a formal conference with sponsor hall and everything you expect from like a real commercial conference almost. I know it's all things open, but it just felt very commercial. FOSDEM was definitely one of a kind conference. All right. Enough about FOSDEM. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is investigating with Fleet. So kind of an extension on what I talked about a few live streams ago about, how we can build a security pipeline with Fleet. So I'm actually going to go through a couple slides. All right, so let's talk about incidents and how OSCORE and Fleet can help with incidents that teams run into. So imagine a team that already has OSCORE deployed and they have a control layer Fleet, right, capable of coordinating questions across their devices. So suppose an alert fires indicating unusual outbound network activity from a small set of endpoints. It's not obviously malicious, but it doesn't match expected behavior. So the detection did its job. It told the team that something deserves attention, and at that point there's a signal, but not enough context to understand what's really happening. So the on-call engineer needs answers quickly, like what processes are responsible for this traffic? Are these binaries expected? Did something change recently? Is this isolated to one machine or spreading? And what matters here is that many of these questions weren't defined ahead of time. The answers are not immediately available, right? They emerge during the investigation. And this is where many investigations lose velocity, right? Because oftentimes engineers start looking for telemetry that was never actually collected. Maybe they have to ship new agents to the machine or fall back to manual machine access over SSH or whatnot. And that delay can be costly. But in our example, our team has OSCORE deployed with Fleet. So instead of logging onto machines individually and writing one-off scripts, the analyst runs live queries through Fleet. They ask simple structured questions. What processes are running right now? What network connections are open? Which binaries back these processes? What's changed on the disk recently? These are not heroic commands run by one person on one machine. These are coordinated questions sent safely to a defined set of endpoints. So in this example here, we're looking for processes with open sockets on non-local, non-standard ports. And we're able to run it on a specific set of machines, either filtered by platforms, filtered by teams, filtered by labels, or filtered by specific machine identifiers. So the important point here is not speed alone, it's consistency. The same query runs everywhere, the same way, returning results in the same shape. And because these queries are issued through Fleet, through the control plane, the security analyst doesn't need special access to the machines themselves. They don't need to improvise, they don't need to remember which host is configured differently. So the system, our system enforces guardrails. It limits scope, it records intent, and audits activity. Here you can see, my name, I ran this live query, so it is in the audit log. And then you can see the query I ran. So this is what it means for the control layer to manage intent and not just transport data. So as the results come back, the team starts to see a pattern. The same process name appears on several machines, the same parent process, the same network destination. And this only works because data coming back from OSCORE and Fleet is normalized. Process information, file metadata, and network state all show up in the consistent schema. The security analyst isn't translating formats or reconciling platform differences, they're reasoning about the system. And that consistency matters more than it sounds. It allows teams to compare hosts directly. It allows them to share queries with each other without rewriting them. It allows a second engineer to validate findings without interpretation gaps. So imagine at this stage, the team realizes this isn't a false positive, it's real activity, but it's contained. They know which machines are affected, what code is running, and how it got there. And none of that required predefining the exact detection ahead of time. This is kind of owning an open source pays off. The team can ask questions they don't anticipate and get reliable answers. So as the investigation progresses, the team refines their queries, they narrow the scope, they adjust filters. One query turns out to be too expensive and gets killed by the agent, right? Our query has a watchdog that can kill expensive queries. Another query is tightened to avoid noise. Because this all flows through Fleet, through the control layer, every change is visible and auditable, right? There is an audit trail of who asked what, when, and why, which matters later, not just during the incident. Security teams are accountable. They need to explain their actions during postmortems and reviews. Being able to say, this is the exact question we asked at this moment is powerful, right? Equally important, configuration is treated as code. Queries that have proved useful before can live in version control, right, with GitOps. Changes can be reviewed, mistakes can be reverted, and this avoids a common failure mode where incident response becomes tribal knowledge or undocumented shell history. Fleet does not make decisions for the team, it makes decisions explicit, right? That distinction is critical. All right, so the incident resolves without escalation. The affected machines are cleaned up. No further spread is observed. But the real takeaway isn't the outcome. It's what made the response possible. The team didn't rely on a black box to explain what happened. They didn't wait for a vendor update. They didn't lose time stitching together partial data, right? They owned the questions. They owned the schema. They own the timeline of the decisions, right? And the story isn't about query or Fleet as a product. It's about treating endpoint telemetry as a system you control, not just a feed you consume. The controller made that possible by separating intent from execution, right? Fleet coordinated questions safely, consistently, and transparently. Yeah. So just wanted to kind of give this little talk. It's related to what we discussed in earlier office hours about the whole pipeline. Just a little additional information I decided to add to a future talk. All right. Let me open my browser. Let's just take a look at the dashboard here. Let me update today's plan. All right, reviewing, fixing bugs. All right, let's move on to bugs. So what am I working on right now? I'm working on a couple things we mentioned last time, which is OpenTelemetry, basically allowing us to export OpenTelemetry logs and being able to see logs and traces in your OpenTelemetry backend. Now, there's still some work linking those two together, but at least both are exported. An interesting thing I found is logs are structured. We export structured logs. So you can filter, or you can just view certain columns of the log and not everything. Probably talk about this in the future once this is actually working to a point where I can actually use this for kind of day-to-day development work. Reading the question. Hey, Victor, I have a Fleet GitOps workshop tomorrow. Any tips for things I should look into before then? That's great. So you're attending Fleet GitOps workshop. I assume this is run by Harrison. He does a great job with workshops. Let me think. I mean, I'm kind of getting started. GitOps is on github.com, fleet-dm, fleet-gitops. This was actually just modified yesterday. Modified it a little bit. There's not a lot of like explanation. Like it tells you that it tells you like how to set it up, but doesn't like explain the idea about GitOps. Let me see, maybe YAML reference. It's also kind of heavy, like what kind of things can you configure? I know this is all very dense. It's not like, I think the GitOps workshop is great because it's actually like going to be designed to be engaging and interesting. And I know sometimes like reading, you know, long documentation like such this is not very, maybe, let me just say it this way, maybe a little sleep inducing. So I don't know if you need to explicitly be prepared for something. Maybe just have like a local fleet instance that you can mess with, that you can run like GitOps configuration against. In our main repo, like this is like a very basic. It doesn't really have much. Like if I look at the GitOps, what do we have here? It basically doesn't have very much. It's basically just a scaffold. Let me see if the teams have anything. Teams. Let me see. Dedicated devices. I'm just clicking around. Sorry about that. Okay, I see. Yeah, this has been really simplified to basically give you a scaffold without necessarily like all the contents, right? These directories are empty. Just like a scaffold you get started with, and then you have to know what to fill in. But a good reference for GitOps is our own config, right? If you go to Fleet's repo and you go into IT and security, and IT and security is basically our GitOps for our server that's managing our devices. So it's a good reference for what we're doing. Of course, sometimes we also need to kind of test new features. So sometimes we add stuff here, not necessarily because we need it ourselves, but because we want to make sure it's working in a real production environment. All right, well, hopefully that was helpful. I got a little long-winded there. Okay, so where was I? I was going to work on some bugs. Okay, I was explaining what I'm working on. Yeah, OpenTelemetry, I'm really excited about that. Cool, I'm reading a response. Cool, I have a bit of experience with it before, but I'll try to have an instance running and mess around with it. Thanks. Yeah, I think if you've got experience before, I think it should be, you should have a good start, and you should be able to get, much more out of the Git workshop. So have fun and good luck. Okay, so I do want to start by looking at this bug, Android certificates error. So we shipped support for Android certificates, specifically. Specifically, there is a Fleet app that gets deployed, automatically deployed on your Android device. And then in Fleet, you can configure certificates. Let me see if I've got some configured. Let me see. Let me see where my Android hosts are at. Okay, in the demo. Okay, so I go to demo. I go to certificates. I have a couple certificates configured, and these are actually like templates. Like the information here is like what the device needs to actually get a certificate. This template refers to a certificate authority, in this case, custom SCEP test. So this certificate authority lives, I believe, in kind of the top level under integrations, certificate authorities. So let me take a look at it. Okay. All right. So this is just high-level information. So what is the issue here? So our customer is seeing this error, BER to DIR. So unfortunately, I did not prefetch this, but I believe what we need here is some more data. Like it's complaining that the BER tag length is more than available data. So so I want to see. I think what we want to see is kind of the raw data, to actually kind of take a look at it and confirm, because we don't know whether this issue is necessarily on a Fleet server, probably not the Fleet server, if it's under Android agent, or it's on the CA. Also, this is kind of like lower level details of the certificate process. So hopefully we're not going to spend all remaining time on this specifically. We'll just get kind of started how we're going to do this. So my thinking is, okay, this is their config. I don't know if that matters or not. End user IDP username. So the host has to have a username. So if I go to the host, can I add a user? I can add a user here. Okay. Oops. Let me lock this. Okay. It doesn't matter what it is. John@example.com. Right. Okay. Okay, so what I want is, I think the easiest thing is to have my CA print out this this BER data. So how would I get started in this? So let's see, we have a CA. It's called, we're using the SCEP server from NanoMDM, I believe. Get info. Anyway, and I want to see if we have it running right now. I don't think I started it. Okay, we don't have it running. So I do want to open this directory because I want to modify the SCEP server to print out this BER data. So I'm gonna actually create a new maybe I have it open already. Skepworks.go, I already have a project for this. Okay, so maybe I've been messing with this already. And of course, we're going to guide our AI agent to do this work. Okay, we're seeing the error. I would like to print out the BER data before we hit the point that causes. And just to be clear, I'm not, please tell me how you plan to, please tell me the implementation plan. So just to be clear, the we're not actually seeing this error locally, right? We have not been able to reproduce it ourselves. So I think my plan is to kind of take a look at the data itself as we're producing it to see if there is something suspicious about it. And then maybe when we talk to the customer, we can actually point them to my Skep server as well and have them request a cert from their Android device and their Fleet instance, and maybe we'll see something different then. So kind of taking approach from the two directions. Okay, so it's pretty quick. Okay, PKI operation. I mean, this is fine. Debug logger log, PKI operation raw data. Okay, it explains the decode, extract message byte, makes Skep endpoint, routes to PKI operation. I guess I want some more explanation. PKCS7 bird error here. Actually, need to reacquaint with myself with exactly how Skep works. But I'm just kind of showing this for demonstration purposes. I don't want to really dig into this. I don't want us to all like learn together. So what, I would kind of first investigate so I understand this whole flow, like when the data is being transferred into what. But let's just go ahead and just for expediency, let's just tell it to use option 8. You may also want to write the raw bytes into a file. Makes sense. Okay. Yes, use option A, and also write raw bytes to a file in temp with a timestamp, with a timestamp name, right? Makes sense. Okay, so it's running. It'll ping me when it's done. So meanwhile, what I usually do, I usually try to work on things in parallel, right? And that is the software engineering flow nowadays, right? Because AI agents is helpful, but they take a while. So you kind of have to, often you have to switch between two tasks, or if you have like a heavy task, you want to be working on different parts of that bigger task. So since these are kind of infrastructure internal things, not necessarily interesting to kind of and fleet end user, let's go ahead and jump to look at the bugs outstanding. And initially, I'm going to be focusing on the bugs in our security and compliance team because we still have a lot. And let's actually prioritize them by customer. So label customer dash star. Okay, that's good. We got some in ready that need to be kind of reviewed and make sure they can be reproduced. So we're not going to be looking at these yet. Label dog food. Dog food is like bugs that we found ourselves in our environment. Okay. Let's go ahead and let me take a ready to estimate first. Fleetbot not working on dog food. Actually, I just heard the sound, so let's switch back to the implementation here. Okay. All right, logs the raw bird data via the debug logger, writes the raw bytes. When the error occurs, you'll see okay, so I wanted to test it, right? Test it for real. Start the skip server and then use the skip client to send a request to this server. Confirm that you see the expected data in the logs and in the file. Hold on. Log and save raw bird data before parsing. Raw data, debug file. Writing to file, that's fine. Okay, sorry, I don't quite, you know, maybe my misunderstanding here, but I don't kind of completely understand. What it's trying to do here. You're saying you log the raw bird data, but the file extension is .dir. Please quickly explain the difference between dir and dir. So unfortunately, I'm showing my lack of, maybe at some point I knew this, but I've forgotten. But let's go back to looking at the bugs. Okay, Fleetbot not working in dog food. We have a MCP agent that we've kind of been using internally. You know, yeah, you know, I'm not sure. I should. I think you know, we kind of created it. I've been thinking a little bit about this, You know, there was an MCP craze like about a year ago, right? MCP came out, and then everyone needed to have an MCP servers. But nowadays we have AI coding agents like the one I'm using right now. It's doing stuff for me. So there's an argument that MCP servers are not really needed anymore, because if you're using just a general agents like this, and you have a CLI, like we have a fleet control CLI, we also have an API. So we have a CLI and an API, and we can just tell the agents to use a CLI and an API. We don't necessarily need an MCP server. Well, now that I've said it, I guess I have to write it. Is and okay, like I was saying, IT admins can point them at fleet controllers. They're using our existing tools. Our existing official what do they call fleet control and API existing tools, fine, whatever. It's not a must, blah blah blah. On interactions with the tools in the, for example, Okay, sorry, I'm not saying, but what I'm going to write next is if you have an MCP server and you have tools in it, you have to kind of sell those tools to the AI agent. You want to like name those tools and provide options to those tools in such a way that the agent will be more likely to use them. Name the tools in the MCP server that the AI agent is more likely to use them when it is appropriate. This may mean combining multiple API endpoints into one tool, etc. I might get invited to our design review to talk about this. Okay, all right. Sometimes, you know, you go down these rabbit holes and they take a while, and then you look around and a bunch of time has passed. All right, back to our certificate issue. Okay. BER, basic encoding rules, is the more flexible format, allows multiple valid ways to encode the same data. Okay. There is a strict subset of BER. Okay. All valid there is valid BER, but not both. Okay. Incoming skep date is technically BER. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. Change it to .BER. Manually verify your changes. Start a skep server. Use a skep client to request a cert. Confirm that you see the data in logs and in the right file. It's probably going to ask me to run some stuff. Okay. Update error messages to be more helpful. Sounds like a UI issue. Update messaging to be more helpful. Microsoft NDSCA cannot be selected after you delete an existing NDSCA unless you refresh the page. I wonder if this sounds like a front-end issue. Yeah. Yeah, the page needs to be manually refreshed. Sounds good. Incorrect CPE generated for Nextcloud desktop client. Okay, let's quickly take a look at this. After installing Nextcloud desktop client, Fleet generates the CPE. Nextcloud server. I see. Fleet generates Nextcloud server. So this is cause it's a false positive. Like this is something AI agents could just figure out. Like I'm actually surprised. Like where would Fleet get this server? Is it just trying to match? Is it just pulling in the tool and then trying to match? Match on Nextcloud? This is macOS. Sure, let's work on this one. Assign to myself. Milestone. Our next release. 482. Estimation. We'll probably put it 2. Probably I'll just self-estimate it. That's fine. Actually, doesn't really matter because I need to move it to our board. Move it to our board. In progress. Current sprint. Assigned to me. Okay. And this is how work gets done nowadays. You just ask your AI agent to do the work. Okay. Please investigate this bug and suggest potential root causes. You know, reminding it, like this is literally how, you know, work gets done. Oftentimes, for bugs especially, bugs are often limited in scope that the AI can just figure it out themselves. And in fact, I can tell a story. Quick side effects. Maybe I already told this story. That, you know, I think I did tell the story, right? Last time I filed a bug, and then 30 minutes later, basically an AI agent came in and opened a PR request against Fleet. And I briefly looked at the PR request, and like it was obvious it was AI generated. I use a lot of AI, so I would know. But like it looked fine. Like, you know, obviously it needed some manual review. Which kind of brings me to the thing I've been thinking about, right? As it's easier and easier to generate the code, kind of the PR review becomes the bottleneck. And of course, when you're creating tools for corporations, you can't just YOLO it, or you can't just let AI do the review and merge it. But I think we do need kind of more tools to help with our code review process, right? More linking tools help. Also kind of more kind of architectural checks. I mean, dependency checks, latency checks, basically kind of more tests effectively, right? But they need to be, I guess, integration tests, right? I mean, AI can also generate a whole bunch of tests that, you know, test very little thing, but take up a lot of code. We need like higher level, meaningful integration tests, maybe with some randomization. All right, this is surprisingly fast. The bug occurs, no CPU translation. Well, the problem is it doesn't, like, we don't know what it comes back as. Well, I guess I'll test it, right? So part of it is just the testing process. So I would install this Nextcloud desktop client on my Mac, confirm the issue, then I would apply this fix. Right, yeah, because it just matches against the CPE it gets from NVD. CPE translations, bundle identifier. So we know this is the bundle identifier? Like he just suggested desktop like. I think we just skip it, right? because we don't know if it's actually this. Let's go to NVD. NVD home. Do we have a CPE search? CPE search. Next cloud. A lot of stuff. There's a lot of pages. 6,000 records. What is wrong with Nextcloud? Refine search. It's too much details. I'm just trying stuff. Okay, I can't, like what I'm trying to do is to see if there is Nextcloud desktop. So this is vendor, this is the product, right? What else should I search for? CPE, oh, let me think. I wonder, like, this is not a great search. Hold on, we have this stuff. So we have CPE SQLite. That should have all the data. It's large, updated recently. So we just need to open it in a data grip. Okay, fleet version control. I want to open a new project. CPE. I swear. Okay, it's better to have, well, I could have opened in the same project, but it's fine. Yeah, I already have it here. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Where CPE 2.3 like percent next cloud column. Well, let's just do it like this. Nextcloud talk, Nextcloud server. So I'm trying to see if there's a reminder if there's Nextcloud desktop. I mean, it's fine to use desktop. It's just not in here, so we're kind of naming things ourselves. Should the be like Nextcloud desktop or something else? Desktop is not currently in the NVD CPE data set, so it feels like we are coming up with our own name. Is this name appropriate for this app? All right, guys, we have 5 minutes left. Let's check in with our other AI friend. Yeah. It's asking me to run this. This is fine. To run the server. It also wants to run the client. But the client's supposed to -H. The client is supposed to request from the server. Is it just figuring out how to run this stuff? What port are we using? I'm gonna change this a little bit. Check the port. We're using port 2016. Using port 2016. I think that's a standard. Use port 2016. Server, it's port 2016. Go ahead. Okay, it's running this in background. That's cool. And then we're gonna hit this port. And get a cert. Right. Well, it needs to create a key. I don't know if it has a key. I'm worried this is gonna get a bunch of junk. Okay. So yeah, I was able to run the server, run the client, they talk. Now it's checking our stuff. Open SSL, AS1 ports, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I mean, this looks legit. You know, of course, I need to double check everything. I'm just kind of going a little quickly, just not to bog things down. Okay. Kill the server. Okay, so it looks like running the client and server together works. So the next thing, server logs, blah, 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 files created, file is valid, just completed, cool. Okay, so now we just launch this server ourselves. We know the command here. Skip server. Actually, let me, I got 1 minute. Well, yeah, I'll launch it here. I think let's wind up. Thanks guys for watching. Hopefully you find something useful, and feel free to, well, I usually put up the next one, you know, the same day. So feel free to ask questions ahead of time. And good luck with your GitOps training and your endeavors. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.